So thank you everybody for joining us today for the August IBMS Support Hub. Lovely to see you here. Thank you for making time to come and speak with us and to listen to the session today. So the session that we're doing today, I'm delighted to have two co-presenters with me, Vicky Moyse and Farinre. So they are both going to talk to you about their own experiences. And then we've got some slides at the end that I'm going to go through with some hints and tips and maybe some advice or help if you were thinking of looking at recognition and awards and how you might go about applying. So the three of us are going to present to you today. And what we would like to do, first of all, is just give you an outline of what we're going to talk about in the Support Hub session. So if you want to put a question in the chat or in the Q&A, please do. If you want to unmute your microphone and ask us questions, that's absolutely fine as well. If you haven't been to a Support Hub before, what we normally do is record the session, and then that session will be made available on the website. It's all open access. So if you do have colleagues who couldn't come today, if they're on leave or if they were busy doing something else in the lab, then if you let them know that this is available, then they can watch it at another point at their leisure. So for the Support Hub today, what we wanted to talk to you about are experiences that both Vicky and Bami have in applying for awards or being nominated for awards, and also thinking about what recognition there is for scientists and biomedical scientists out there. So from their experiences, what do they know? What is awards that are out there? So the IBMS Awards, obviously, is something that we'll be talking about. But what other organisations have awards, or what other activities might you want to be involved in that could help you in your journey for recognition and award application? And then at the end, towards the second half, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the barriers that there might be for you applying for reward and recognition, and some hints and tips about successful applications. So what kind of things might you want to think about when you're starting to think about applying for an award? What might help you in that preparation phase? And then you can decide when to apply. Should you apply this time, or might you want to wait until next time that award is running? So with no further ado, I shall hand over to Vicky. I'll keep control of the slides if you can't take control, Vicky. So can you see an option to take control, or do you want me to keep doing them?
I'm not sure if I have got an option to take control.
Yeah, that's fine. Just tell me next slide.
I'm mostly going to talk. So
lovely.
So thank you very much, Sue. For those people that don't know me, I'm Vicky Moyse. I am the training manager for HCA Laboratories, and I've worked in a few different places, both in the NHS and in the private sector, and a bit of both. So I was asked to talk to you today about recognition for us, and we also recently, I'm still in a bit of shock about it, won some of the awards at the IBMS Awards, which was a huge surprise. But I'm just going to talk a little bit about why we put in for that and how we put in for that, and what we thought we might get out of doing that. So if you could go to the next slide. So the topic of the session was about recognition, and I'm sure everyone's aware the IBMS Awards, it was the first time they were held. And I'll be honest, we weren't really sure what they were going to be. I'm sure a lot of people felt the same. I think the IBMS were waiting to see what they would turn out to be like as well. But as soon as we saw this come up, we really wanted to be part of it in some way, shape or form, because recognition is important. And like, just looking at the number of people in that picture there, all the people that attended the awards and won awards from so many different places, we don't get to do that very often. And even somewhere at Congress, we get together, but we're not really recognizing ourselves as such. Even at Congress, we're talking and we're sharing and we're, saying hello, networking, but we don't really celebrate ourselves. And if you look around at other professions, other industries, other sectors, friends and colleagues I have that work in other places, that happens a lot more elsewhere. And I don't know about everyone who's on the call, but it feels a little bit weird. And even when I was writing the awards, I was sitting there thinking, oh, should I really do this? Do I want to be that person that's always going, look at me, look at me? But then I realized it isn't about that. And I wasn't applying for that reason. And there's a few reasons why. And now after we've been part of that, we will probably do it more in the future as well. So if you can move to the next slide, please, Sue. So I thought a little bit about why did we, I'll be honest, it took a while to write the applications. It's a bit of work. Somebody's got to sit down and do it. And I thought a bit about why did I bother to do that? And actually, it wasn't about could we win this award. For me, it was about showing my teams and the people that work for us that somebody thought we were good enough to put us on the list. And I wanted to say, look, I'm really proud of what we've done here. I'm going to put us in for this award. And even if it had gone no further than that, that was the point. And it was for that reason. And then in the lead up to the event, just seeing our name on some of the shortlists, seeing our name in the Gazette, sorry, in the Biomedical Scientists, still call it the Gazette, that created a bit of a buzz. People looked and went, oh, somebody's put us forward for this. Somebody thinks we've done a good job, enough to tell other people about the job that we've done. And I have to admit, I would apply again for that reason and that reason alone. Even if we hadn't won anything, even if we hadn't been able to send quite so many people to the event, which was really good that we could go as a group, just that was enough. That's what we wanted to do it for. And even that has created a little bit of a buzz. People are already, here and there, little pockets saying, oh, what could we put forward next time? Could we put forward something next time? Oh, is there anything else that we could enter? And it's really, really nice to hear that. It doesn't kind of seep through to everywhere. This is like a cultural change thing. It takes a while, but just having those little conversations going on in areas where that wasn't happening before is really nice. And I'll talk a little bit about the 2 awards that we entered in a second, but in both of them, to me, the application was part of creating a particular culture. And we know that changing a culture, whether it's around whatever topic or around embedding a particular process or just getting people to think a certain way, it takes a long time. You never change a culture overnight. So I wanted to do this as just another one of those signals along the way of this is how we want to be, this is how we want to see ourselves. We want to feel like we could put ourselves forward when we think we've done a good job. And a lot of the things that we talked about in our entries involved an awful lot of people who never would necessarily have thought to put themselves forward for this. So I wanted to put this forward essentially on their behalf to say, I think you've done an awesome job. And this is my way of proving it. So I did put on the list who has time to apply. I think the who has time to do this is a question that comes up for a lot of things, and it's totally personal as to whether you think it's worth it or not. But for me personally, it was well worth it. Just to get that bit of recognition, getting us on the list, creating a bit of a buzz. It's the kind of thing that does slowly but surely, I feel, kind of seep into teams, into people's mindsets, get them thinking about how could we recognise each other and ourselves. So I did sit down and do it, and it did take me a couple of weeks to get things together, I'll be honest, but you can ask people for help as well, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in the tips later. And I also talked to a couple of people in our organisation from other parts, not from labs, from other parts of the organisation who'd gone for awards in their own sectors, and asked them what they did, and they shared some information, particularly around the EDI entry that we put in. So asking other people for help is always a useful thing to do. And when it comes down to what to say, I'll kind of cover the last 2 bullet points together. None of this was about, well, for me certainly, none of this was about saying, look at us, we're the best, haven't we done the best job? It was about, why are we proud of what we've done? And in both of the category cases, we've still got a lot of work to do. And I put that in the entries, and I said, we're not by any means suggesting that we've done the best ever, or there's nothing left for us to cover. But actually taking a step back and having time to reflect on what we have done, essentially that's what I put into the application. To be honest, the applications were almost a bit of a reflective statement for me, to sort of stand back and go, oh, hang on, yeah, okay, we've still got loads to do, but look at what we've done. This is positive, this is good, it steps in the right direction. And actually trying to document that it was as useful for me and the teams that I shared it with as it was for putting it into the awards, which I didn't realise until after I'd written it. So we put in for the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Award. And I was inspired by a team in another part of our business to do that. And I was also inspired by our trainees, and I'll talk about that in a sec. And we put in for the Training and Development Award because we have essentially built a system from the ground up in the last few years. And this one in particular involved so much work from so many people that I wanted to be able to go back to them and say, look, I am this proud of what you've done. I'm going to try and tell everybody else about it. So if you can move forward one, please. So very quickly, I'll just mention what I put in or what I was thinking for each of the 2 applications that we made, and then I'll stop talking. But if there's questions on this when we talk about tips at the end, maybe we can come back to that if anybody's got any questions. So the EDI award, this was a tricky one because I think this is an area where people find it quite difficult to say, yes, look at us. Aren't we good at this? Because I would probably say not everywhere is amazingly good at it, and not through any lack of intent, or it's just a difficult area because it's so diverse and it covers a lot of different initiatives, different levels of the organization, different groups of people. It can look like a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I'll be honest, the thing that really made me want to put in for this one was our trainees. So I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the portfolio. There's a module in the portfolio all about equity, diversity and inclusion. And probably like a lot of people, when people do the portfolio, we give them some sets of questions that they have to do, and we then give them some suggestions on the different things they can do for evidence across all the different modules, and then they pick what suits them or their practice the best or what they want to demonstrate. And we do that for the EDI module. Now, for all of the other modules, I generally get a bit of a mixture. Different people will choose different things depending on what they like or what they've done, and some people like facts and figures, and some people like more general stuff or theoretical. However, in the EDI module, overwhelmingly, when our trainees are given the choice, they will choose to do evidence to talk about the people that they work with and the experiences they've had with their teams. And they love to show off how diverse their teams are. And they love to talk about why that's good and why it makes them feel good to be part of our teams, or why they're glad they came to our lab. And lots of it varies between the individuals, but it overwhelmingly ends up being about that. And I thought that was a really powerful thing, that they've chosen to talk about this when they could go away and do what is a fairly easy piece of evidence sometimes, to go through an official report or talk about collecting data in recruitment. Those are some of the other suggestions they give. So that's what inspired me to put in for this. And then we also have quite a lot of initiatives going on across our organisation. And again, taking a step back and reflecting, I was quite proud of how much labs gets involved with those initiatives. And we've got different people who've gotten involved in different group activities, whether it's celebrating particular events across the year, or being part of the Armed Forces Network, or going and helping with Pride celebrations, and various different things, and different people have engaged. So bringing all of that together, I wanted to kind of recognise that people were showing that this is valuable. And one of the main things we talked about was how we've used staff feedback and engagement. And I thought this was quite an important part of what we do, because a lot of that brings up the fact that we have got a lot of work to do, but we've got a lot of evidence of where we've responded to people, taken on board suggestions. And again, it's about this trying to create a culture. We're not trying to say that we do everything perfectly, but we're trying to create a culture where people feel comfortable to say so when they want something to be different. And that's kind of one of the biggest things that I think we've made a really good step towards. And I wanted to, again, be able to go back to the teams and say, look, even if it goes no further than this, we're really proud of what you've done, and this is why. So just to quickly go over the training one, if you want to move forward, Sue, thank you. I've already kind of mentioned this. I wanted to put in for this because, firstly, it's my pet subject. I have to hold my hand up and say I would have gone for this one, because we've done a huge amount of work. So just over 3 years ago, I started in this job. And we have never had training approval in the labs where I work, never had anyone go through. Staff feedback came forward, we want to be able to do this. I'm sure it's a similar situation in a few other places. And in that amount of time, we've created a full network of trainers, a training committee. We are just about to start something like our 40th registration portfolio. We've got 8 people doing specialist portfolios. We're a relatively small service. no one person could have done any of that. It is not possible. So I have an amazing group of people who have taken on a lot of extra work for no additional reward, essentially, other than the glowy feeling you get when your trainees do well. And it's all of their hard work that's made this work, and the fact that everybody was so enthusiastic, and they've really done it and sustained it over 3 to 4 years now. This was essentially me wanting to be able to turn to them and say, look, I am really proud of what we've done. I'm putting you in for this award. And if it hadn't gone any further than that, I would have been very happy to have done so. So again, it's just creating that recognition, focusing it onto other people who wouldn't necessarily have put us forward. But I think the response that we've had since we did get on some of those lists and seeing the name in the magazine and things, people like it and people talk about it. So it's just trying to focus some of that back on ourselves and not worry about what the other people who might be applying have done. There were some amazing people who'd applied and shortlisted for a lot of those awards, and that was amazing to see as well. But don't let looking at them put you off what you've achieved, because it's not about who's done it biggest or grandest. It's about what have you done from where you were to where you are. And it doesn't have to match or outdo somebody else. It's just about you. And that's it. That's my summary. I will stop talking now because I could go on forever, as I'm sure Sue knows. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat.
Lovely. Thank you, Vicky. So I'm going to hand over to Bami. So Bami, would you like to introduce yourself formally, and then we can let people know what experience you've got with recognition and awards?
Thank you very much, Sue, for this opportunity. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good time and picking up tips as we go along. My name is Bamidele Farinre, and I currently work with the Synovis as a service support manager. What can I tell you about my experience? I think Vicky covered quite a lot of it already, but I think my first award was back in 2019, and that was with the IBMS. I think it was the first, I don't know if it was the first time that they did the IBMS biomedical science and was the engagement, I can't remember, award. And then I just said, you know what, I'm going to put in for it. And the reason why I did that was because starting out in my career, as a trainee biomedical scientist, I thought, like, you know, I didn't have like a mentor or somebody that I could properly go to and say, you know, this is how I'm trying to do in my career, progress and everything like that. So I decided to be one. And then so I started talking within the department. I became a CPD officer and just encourage others, you know, from that way. So when that award came up, I said, why not? Let me try for it. I was not even expecting anything. I wasn't even sure what to write. And then lo and behold, I won the, I think it was the London region in 2019. And then I was like, wow, this is amazing. Let's try it, you know. So any other awards I was coming, I was just going for it. But the thing about it is that it can be disappointing when you don't win or when you're not shortlisted. And I can tell you that there'd been many, many awards that I have not been shortlisted for, but just entering. And I actually like sometimes that some awards you can self-nominate. There is power in that because it boosts your confidence to think, I am worth it. Because at the end of the day, the work that you're doing, nobody's doing it for you. You're doing it. So you're putting in the effort. And so you deserve to be recognized for it. You're not doing it because, oh, like Vicky mentioned that, oh, because I want it to be me. I'm trying to show off. No, it's not showing off, because this is how you encourage others. You'll be amazed how many people don't have that self-confidence in themselves, despite the fact that they're doing phenomenal things. You know, they're really changing and being a change agent within their respective organizations. But when it comes to awards, they're thinking, I'm not worth it. I'm just doing my job. And then so when they actually put in, and even if it's just shortlisted, I always tell people, I say, look, the fact that once you put your nomination in and it's recognized that, oh, you've been nominated, your name is there already. There's an acknowledgement of that you've put in for your recognition, you know, for the awards. And then you took the time. It takes time. You know, like Vicky was mentioning, you have to actually sit down to think, what do I want to put down? It's like a reflective learning. You think about, what have I done in the past? How can I leverage on this? What can I put to make it, what's my selling point, basically? That is what you need to put, that needs to show for, because it's not, this is how it might seem like you're selling yourself, but they need to see the impact. For whichever category that you decide to put yourself in, they need to see the impact of what you've done. And when it comes to awards, I was so happy when I saw IBMS, thinking our first one inaugural. I was like, yes, finally, because it seems like Vicky mentioned earlier on that, how come we're not celebrating ourselves? I've been to so many awards that are not, within the within the biomedical science space. And I'm like, why are we not doing this? So when I saw that, I was like, this is amazing. Oh my God. And I mean, it didn't take me long before I started telling people about it, that, we've got to put in for this and everything like that. And then seeing the turnout was amazing. I was like, for the first one, my goodness, we're doing phenomenally. Like, there's a lot that we're doing, and we need to shout about it. People need to know about it, because one thing I found in our profession is that that silo working, you don't know what others, your colleagues, are doing in their respective organizations. So it's a way to showcase and and learn more about what they're doing. I mean, if you help me go to the next slide, please, I'll just make a little mention. So this is just few of the many awards that I've won. And Mentor of the Year, this was another organization. It's called Women of the Future, and anyone is eligible. Like, you can apply, even if you're from because it's for STEM, so they recognize people from different industries as well. And this was last year. And why Mentor of the Year? I do a lot of work. I work with the IBMS, I work with the HCPC as a partner, and then I work with other organizations as well outside of the IBMS, as a mentor and a role model. And it's just to really create and advocate, for diversity, advocate for opportunities, and let people, the general public, know about what we do as biomedical scientists. Because they don't, seriously, you'll be amazed that they don't really know much about us. You think they do, but the general public don't know the impact of what we do and how it impacts the nation's health. So, just mentoring others as well that are interested in joining the profession and wanting to know, how did you do it, Bami? And so that was a really tough one, because I was against like other industries that it was really competitive. And another thing that I would like to say, actually, while on this, is that some awards, they have stages. Some awards, they have, it's just a judging panel that will choose who the winner is going to be, or the finalist. And some of them you have to go through interviews, and that can be a bit daunting, because you're like, what are they going to ask? In as much as they say that is informal, the interviews that you go for, it's really important that you prepare for it, because they ask you questions about why do you think, and it's true, what makes you better than the others? Why should you win your specific category? So it's really important to note that. And so a major one, Biomedical Scientist of the Year, I still cannot get over it, even though that was nearly 2 years ago now. It's just amazing, to be recognized as a biomedical scientist, as a Black female as well, doing well within the profession. That speaks volume, that sends out a message, a positive message to others in the field, saying that, look, it is possible. We are doing things. We're making a difference. We're having an impact. And also to be an honorary fellow of the Academy for Healthcare Science, that too, it just speaks that, okay, the work that you're doing, people actually acknowledge, our profession, our professional body, our regulatory body. They acknowledge the work that we're doing. And one thing I would like to say also is not there's so many awards out there. Yeah, and then there's some that I would like to mention. There is the WISE Awards. Women in Science and Engineering. I don't know if a lot of us know about it. That one you can go for. There is the Women of the Future that I've just mentioned now. There is the STEM UK Awards. And also, even if you don't want to go outside of your organization, a lot of organizations, especially within the NHS, and I know within the private organizations as well, they do awards. Nominate yourself. Employee of the month, whatever it is, just going for it. It's not because you're trying to shout out loud. It's because you're trying to create awareness of the work that you're doing, and and let others know about it, so that you can educate them, so that they can know better of the services that you provide. So I think on this note, I would say, go for it. You're worth it. You're doing it. Loud it. You know what they say, nobody can shout about what you do than yourself. So make that noise. And if you feel like you don't want to apply for yourself as well, consider nominating your organization, consider nominating your colleagues as well. And as Vicky mentioned, ask people questions. I was telling Sue earlier on that there was a colleague of mine that wanted to go for an award, and she said, Bami, I don't know what to write. Oh, I'm so rubbish. And then she sent me what she wrote. I was like, what? It was packed. Like that was a winning award from my perspective as well, especially having been a judge before with in some of the awards. And I know that the quality of the entry. So I think this will be my final note, that it's not about you showing off. It's about people knowing about the work that you do. And you never know who you may inspire to do just what you're doing as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bami. Hugely important message from both Vicky and Bami. It is about representation, isn't it? It's about people who are like me doing it. And one of my favourite quotes is, you can't be what you can't see. So it is all of the things that both of you talked about people knowing what we do as individuals and as teams, but also about inspiring other people to feel confident that they can go for it as well. So for the next few slides, I'm just going to talk through a few different areas and some hints and tips, because I think it's really important with the support hubs that people go away with some tangible benefits and things and resources they can actually say, right, so if I want to do this thing that we've talked about today, how might I go about it? So Vicky and Bami have talked really articulately about some of the benefits and the importance of recognition and why it is so important, not necessarily just for the individual, but for the organisation and the team and for the people who work there. So we all know biomedical scientists do fantastic work, and it's incredibly important work, and it is quite often something that's not recognised. It's not necessarily known by the general public, as Bami said, but it is really important, and it's something that the Institute is championing and trying to make people much more aware of the work that goes on behind the scenes. All of that work to raise the profile of the profession means that people should be more aware of what happens when the samples go to the lab. Who is it that's actually doing the testing, and all of the important bits that people do in those laboratories to influence the pathology pathway and the patient journey as they go through. So recognising outstanding contributions can be for teams or individuals, and sometimes we find it easier to talk about the team. I'll talk about that a little bit later. It's very difficult for us as scientists to say, I did this. We're taught from quite a young age, when we do anything scientifically, when we're writing, we have to talk about it in the third person. So this was done. It's a very factual account. We don't talk about ourselves very lot. We're not always very good at talking about ourselves a lot. Sometimes it can feel quite uncomfortable as well. Both Bami and Vicky have talked about showing off and maybe feeling like you're shouting about what you do, but that's something we need to get used to. We need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable when it comes to awards, because it is important that people recognise the work that's being done. And all of the things that Vicky said about the ripple effect of that, just being nominated, just being shortlisted, just going forwards, the effect that that's had on colleagues across the organisation about feeling positive about what they do, feeling that people have noticed what they do, and actually it is making a difference. And that saying thank you to people for the time and effort and work, because it is a hard job. People do work incredibly hard, and it's nice just to get that acknowledgement sometimes. So that process of writing the application and people knowing that you've been shortlisted sometimes can be enough. And it's not just the award at the end that is the important thing, as we said. So I thought this is quite a nice image to share today. You probably have seen it on social media, but it's not just about the success that you see. So sometimes we can see what other people are doing and think, oh gosh, they're doing that really well. They've got a lot of recognition for what they're doing, and oh, that's quite impressive. What we don't see is what goes on in the background, all of the things that go into that moment of success or that award that's been given. So what we don't see is all of that hard work and the time it's taken and the amount of effort it's taken and things going wrong, refining things, making it better, all of the things that we do in our everyday life as scientists, reflecting on what we do and improving what we do, are what lead to the success. So it is an iterative process. And it doesn't mean if you're starting to think about applying for awards, it has to be right now. It could be you think about, okay, so let's get some information together and we maybe think about applying next time. Let's have a think about where we are, or what would we need to do if we wanted to get to a position where we could apply for something? What would we need to have in place? And hopefully in the next few slides, that's something that we can share with you. So as Bami and Vicky both said, time is the enemy. Time is something that we're very poor in. So having the time to actually just sit down and have headspace and think about an application is quite difficult. Other things that can get in the way: self-doubt, lack of confidence, thinking that you're not good enough, or thinking that people won't think that you're good enough. And sometimes we just stop ourselves from doing applications when actually what we are doing is very good and it should be recognised. Not knowing what's out there, so not knowing what awards are available. So as part of the support hub session today, we'll try and get some resources together and some links that we can send out about just what kind of awards are there, when are they, where are they, what kind of things might you want to think about if you're looking at applying for an external award. And then being aware of internal awards and recognition as well, so that you know when are they happening and you can organise yourself so that you can be ready to apply. Also, the key thing that people talk about quite a lot is I didn't quite know what to put in. I didn't know what a good application looked like. I wasn't sure what kind of thing would be good enough, or I wasn't sure if that would be what the judges were looking for. So again, we'll talk about that in the next couple of slides, hopefully to give some ideas for people. So quite often when it comes to recognition, whether that's promotion or whether that's acknowledgement of what you're doing in the workplace, whether that's celebrating with an external award, quite often we get in our own way. I think we are particularly bad at this as scientists, is that we are quite pragmatic and quite down to earth and quite practical people. So we quite often will say, well, I'm just doing what everyone else is doing. I'm not doing anything different. I'm not doing anything new. I'm just doing my job. This is just what I do. This is my role. It's not anything that's impressive or important. We do everything together. It's not me as an individual. I don't do things on my own. We all work together as a team. And that's a really good thing to be able to say. But if it is an individual application that you're going to apply for, you need to be able to pull out your individual contribution. So you can say, this was done as a team effort, but actually my contribution was this. And you need to be able to articulate that. And sometimes it's that articulation of what we've done and how we've done it and what difference it's made is what is the difficult bit. We quite often think nobody wants to hear what I've got to say. You know, I'm just doing everyday things. I'm just doing what I do. Nobody wants to know what I have to say. That's not true. So everybody wants to hear what you have to say, and we can share the practice, whether you win an award or not. So it's about celebrating and acknowledging that hard work that's going on. We've already talked about this a little bit. What if I apply and don't win? The benefits of the application, having that headspace to think about what you do, reflecting on what you do and maybe where the improvements are that you haven't made yet is really, really helpful, regardless of whether there's an award at the end of it or not. And then some people might think I'm showing off or boasting. Again, this is a very self-deprecating thing, isn't it? That you think, well, I'm not special, I'm not different. Why am I going to put myself out there? Because people will think that I'm just showing off. It's not the case. People will celebrate success, and people often will say, that's a really good idea. I wish I could do that. Or I might make contact and find out what you did when you were doing the work towards the award, because I think I'd like to do it in my workplace as well. So there are lots of wins about applying for awards. And if you were to get an award, just being able to network, but we quite often will get in our own way and talk ourselves out of it before we even start. So we need to think about shifting that mindset and saying, you know, it's something that is worth sharing, and it's something that will benefit me and my organisation and my teams, and whether we win or not, it's still a good thing for me to do. So some hints and tips, if you are thinking about any kind of recognition or award and applying, you will already have quite a lot of information that you can use as a starting point. So quite often we look at an application form and think, oh, goodness me, I don't know what I'll put in there. But if you stop and think for 5 minutes, you will already have lots of information that you can go to get some information. Again, as scientists, we like numbers and data and hard facts, and sometimes that's not what these forms are, but you will definitely have information in the way that you train people, in your guidance documents, in your own CPD records or that of others, in the training records that you have, feedback you've had from colleagues. So as you're going along, I would start to have, one of my friends calls it their happy folder. So when they get nice feedback from people about, oh, the suggestion that you made was really useful, we've implemented that and we've seen a difference, this is what's happened because we did what you suggested, keep them, because they are things that you can put into your applications. And if you think about the documentation you already have and what you do, that's a really good scaffolding point to start with. What do we do? Why do we do it? And how does it make a difference? That's the kind of way that you need to think about your applications. So what activities do you already do that you know work well? That's the starting point. And then can you involve other people? So Vicky talked earlier about it's too much work for one person to either do the work, which is recognised by the award, and or write the application. So if it is a team effort and you can divvy up the work so that everyone has a small task to do and then somebody refines it at the end, that might be a good way to tackle the issue of not having enough time, is that you have a few people who contribute to it, everybody's activities are then reduced, and then you get something that you can refine and update for the final application. And then when you're thinking about what you want to put in, What can you talk about that gives you a different angle? So is it something that's new? Is it novel? Is it innovative? Is it the first time it's been tried in your organisation? Is it something that you have taken and someone else has used as well? So have you disseminated it and you've actually spread that across the whole of your pathology service? Is it something that other people have said, we've heard that you're doing this thing, and they've directly approached you and said, we'd like to know more about it. We've heard it does really good things. And what difference has it made on the ground? So not just evidencing you've done something, but what difference it's made is what's really good to put in an application for recognition. So again, a couple more hints and tips. If you are thinking about any particular award, I find the best thing to do is work backwards. So when does it need to be in? When is the submission deadline? And then working back from that, would you have enough time? If you were applying this time around, would you have enough time? If it's not this time and you want to do it in a year's time, can you put markers in your diary for when things need to be done so that you have time to get ready, but you actually make time to organise when you're going to have discussions with people or when you're going to do some writing that you would want to put into that application? Keep in mind the kind of award that you're applying for. So there will be criteria. Any award that you apply for, any recognition scheme you apply for will have criteria. So look at the criteria and see what are they asking for, and then just go back and just look at, is what I'm saying we do here fitting that brief? Does it actually meet the criteria? Because if you apply for something and it doesn't meet the criteria, then you're not going to win. So just be clear about what is it they're looking for and how does your application fit with what the judges are going to be looking for in the criteria. Think about the evidence you already have, like I've just said. So you will already have some, whether it's numerical data, whether it's the number of people you've worked with, whether it's how many people have taken up your approach, whether it's the number of trainees you've got through doing that thing, whether it's there are this many people in the organisation, this is now affected. You will have that data already. But when you think about the application and the criteria, if you look at what they're asking for, you could do a bit of a gap analysis. So you could have a think about, well, I've got this already, but I don't have these things. Do I have time to get these things before the application deadline this time? Or would it be better to accumulate that information over the next few months and then we've got a really solid application next time? And remember that bit about evidence. We're very good at finding evidence. We're very good at finding what we've done. We're less good at finding out what difference it made. So we are good at saying this was an initiative, we implemented it, this is what we did. What we then need to do is think about, after it was implemented, how did things change? Was it quicker? Was it better? Was it more efficient? Was it got better feedback? What difference did it make? Whatever your initiative was or whatever the piece of work was that you were doing, what difference has it made over that period of time since you started doing that thing? That's the really important stuff that the judges will look at and go, oh, okay, so this was what was done and this is why it's made a difference. That's why it's something that's of value. So a colleague of mine, when we talked about evidence and impact, came up with this table, and I think it's a really nice, simple way of thinking about the difference between evidence and impact. So evidence is something that you've done, and impact is the difference it's made. So if you have a think about whatever activity it is, whatever you're thinking about in your application, think about what the activity is, and then think about the types of evidence you have to show that you did that thing. So is it data? Is it feedback? Is it number of people who've been involved? Whatever that data is, what you need to think about is the evidence that you have, and it can be quantitative, so it can be numbers of people, it can be data, it can be different percentage marks, number of people who've done something, or it can be qualitative, it can be feedback, it can be comments, it can be quotes from people, so it could be either of those things. And what you need to think about within your training network, across your pathology service, or across your trust or your network or nationally, how have you moved along from left to right? So if we look at the evidence and how we start to do the impact part of that, the first thing you need to think about is, what did you do? I created something, I did something, that's where I started, that's my activity. How can I evidence excellence? How can I evidence it was good, it worked well, other people wanted to do it? Think about what's happened since you did that initial thing. Who has used that? Where has it gone to? How many people? Why did they want to use it? That's your evidence of excellence. And then the evidence of impact would be, I did a thing, other people have adopted it, this is how big it's got, and it's actually now gone outside my organisation, across the trust, it's international, I talked at Congress about it, I've spoken to people externally. So that shows the scale of what you've done. So from a nascent idea through to embedding that yourself, through to other people adopting it, that's the kind of difference and distance travelled that people are usually interested in when it comes to recognition and award. So quite often when I talk to people about things they do, they say, well, I just know it works. I do a thing at work and I know it works. It works well, it's fine, but don't actually think about why. So sometimes it's good to ask other people. So if you've done something and you know it's working well, maybe ask people on the receiving end of that, or people that you work with, why is it better than what you did before? How is it different to what you did before? And that can then start to inform your perspective, because if you're writing the application, you'll need to articulate that clearly. So why is it good? Why does it work? What is it about it that works well? Remember that quantitative and qualitative thing. It can be either bits of those feedback. They will all enhance the application that you're putting together. And remember that scale and scope thing. So is it something that you've done in just your laboratory, or is it something that's been adopted by others? How many people? Over what size? How big has it got? And then again, talk to those people and ask them what difference did it make for them, how much of a difference to their day-to-day lives, or that particular thing that you were working on, how has that made a difference for them and improved things for them. So thinking about scale and scope, this is just another diagram that I've borrowed from a colleague called Catherine Hubbard, that she had in a publication. I've put the link to the publication at the bottom there. So this was with colleagues in academia, but it works just as well for people whether they're in academia or whether they're in practice. So if you think about, this is your zone of practice. So you and what you do immediately is in the bottom in green. Working across your team and working in your local laboratory will be the yellow bit. Then we move into the orange and pink, which could be across your department or across the whole of pathology. So you might work in one discipline, but people in a completely different discipline pick it up because it works really well for them as well. Across your trust or across your network, nationally, internationally, how far has it gone? So remember, when you're doing the application, the people who will be judging it don't know you and don't know your context. So you need to be really clear about, this is where it started and this is where it's gone to. This is how big it is and this is what has happened since we started and this is where we are now. And as Vicky said, you can say it's not solved, we haven't finished, we've still got things to do. That's absolutely fine. But they won't know the scale and the context of your work unless you make that clear in your application. So just to summarise, I want to leave lots of time for question and discussion. So just to summarise, find out what the award is. So what is out there? What kind of awards exist? What are the timescales for applications? When do they open? When do they close? When might you want to apply? Start to have a think about, if you were putting an application together soon, what do you already have that you could use as evidence? And if you want to do a gap analysis at that point to see, have we got enough that we can put an application in? Or actually, maybe it's not now, maybe we start to think about it and we embed some of those practices and then we do a gap analysis to see what's missing. Ask other people for feedback. We're always quite shy about doing this, and I've never had anybody say no when I've asked for feedback about something, and people are normally really positive. So if you were bold enough to email and say, I'm writing an application, I know that you took the thing that we did and you've used it in your lab, could you give me some feedback? They will do it. I can pretty much guarantee you they will come back and they will tell you an honest opinion, and it's usually always positive if the thing that you've done has improved things for them. Any of those things that you get back as you're going along, bank them, create your own happy folder, put them into one place so that when you are writing something, you know where to go. You're not going back through your inbox, you're not looking through lots of documents to find them. Take things out and catalogue them and put them somewhere that it's easy to find. And then as you're doing an application, they're at your fingertips and it's nice and easy. And as both Vicky and Bami have said, you will learn a lot from the application process. It's not about getting to the finalist stage. It's not about winning overall. It's about using the application to inform what you do and improve what you do going forwards, whether that's other applications or whether that's your day-to-day practice. So you can't lose by thinking about any reward and recognition scheme and having to think about how you might want to apply. So I will finish there. We've got a good 10 minutes for any questions or discussion. So if you are thinking of applying for something, good luck. And I will stop sharing my screen and come back into the virtual room, and then we can have a chat and see what questions have come in. So have we got anything that's come in, Vicky or Bami, that's an immediate question?
Nothing so far.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Deborah's on the motorway.
Yep.
Hi, Anthony, you got a question?
Hi, it's Tony Cambridge here. Yeah, great. Thanks to the three speakers, the three of you. Found it really interesting. Started to pique my interest a little bit more in applications, for the wider team, for the services that we deliver, and individuals within those services. And I think we are particularly poor, especially here at University Hospitals Plymouth, within pathology, for showcasing exactly what we're doing, the achievements we've managed to bring about for individuals and for those team successes. But yeah, we've got so many service improvement projects on the go at the moment. You know, we are talking about across pathology pushing 100 individual projects, and a lot of them are bearing fruit as we speak. So yeah, like you say, get prepared, you know, start collating all that information, you know, start getting some metrics together about, I know you said it's not about hard data, it's more about, you know, the overall outcomes and impact, and just trying to articulate that in the best way, really. I've never put in for, you know, an application, you know, for an award for our teams before, and we don't really have anybody defined for that. One of the things that resonated with me from what you were all saying is, you know, it's about the awareness of which awards are coming up, what the timelines are for putting in those applications and trying to collate that information, knowing which awards are available. You know, I've got a list here that I've just been putting down because Bami's run through some there. You know, RC Path, HSJ. I'll see a lot on LinkedIn where, you know, you miss the opportunity because everybody's there on the award ceremony evenings or celebrating getting together or even being the winners, and you're thinking, you know, we should really be on the ball. Yeah, we should be on the ball. We should be part of that. And being it's not a geographical thing. You know, we're stuck down in the southwest. We're kind of out the way. We're a little bit quiet, you know, in terms of singing from the hills. But you know, it's something we need to improve on. And you've given me a lot of pointers there. I've made a lot of notes, and I think the important thing for me is it's a long career. Lots of people do either stagnate for whatever reasons or go as far as they want to go, but you know, it's that feeling of value and worth and what your contribution is that is equally as important as, you know, having a career that, you know, goes to the top. And goodwill and morale, you know, trying to support those, you know, some of that has eroded over the years maybe in some elements of pathology and biomedical science, but you know, we're trying to build that back up again. And I think recognition in this way is equally as valuable as, you know, internally being recognized. You know, this national or even external recognition is very important, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. And I think what you've just said is something that I think as well. It's easy to believe when someone else says it. So if someone else says you're good, you've got a piece of paper or you've got an award that says you did something well, it's easier for us to accept that rather than thinking it ourselves somehow. I don't quite know why, but that seems to be a lot of people, particularly scientists. I think we are a particular breed, aren't we, where we don't like people, don't like to be centre of attention, and we don't like people pointing at us and things, and we find it hard to tell people that we're good at doing what we're doing. So the more we can do to support people to give them ideas on what's out there and what to do, the better, because we do need to celebrate. We do need to celebrate all that hard work, don't we? And make sure that people do know who the biomedical scientists are and what we're doing. I think that's a massively important thing. Yeah. So thank you for your comments. Bami, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, I wanted to add to that. Yeah, thank you, Tony, for your contribution. I think it's really important, like, so I think a lot of the awards sometimes that I go for is by chance. Like I'm just thoroughly maybe through the work intranet or by word of mouth and things like that, and a lot through networking. I mean, if you're on LinkedIn, it's a really good way, you know, to find out about what awards. And sometimes the ones that I miss, what I tend to do is put in diary, just like Sue said, to say, I'm going to put a note for me to apply for this next year. And another thing that I like to say is there anything within the organization that they're doing to create, like I mentioned earlier on, sometimes they do employee of the month, the best team of the month or something like that. It's something that you could start from there for the team internally. And then from there, you just venture out into, like, you know, the external awards as well, because there's quite a lot. You mentioned quite a few. HSJ, that one is every year. They got the thing, there's another one, the Health and Safety Expo as well. There's quite a few there that sometimes you may feel like, oh, because of the names, and sometimes what we need to look out for, the names, because the title, sometimes you may feel like, oh, this is not applicable to me. But once you look through the categories, then you will find out that, oh yeah, I can actually, because I sometimes I go into the tech space, yeah, and then I look, because it may come under leadership, it may come under diversity and inclusion, it may come under training. There's quite a lot of things, and there's a lot of awards as well that's under teams. So it's just, I'll see if I can collect a list of all the ones that I've won, and then send it out, to Sue, and then she can share, because I think it means a lot. That way we can create that awareness of our profession. Because some of the awards that I go for, they'll be like, oh my God, biomedical scientists. And I'm thinking, sometimes I feel like, what am I doing here? This is a lot of corporate people, but yeah.
Yeah,
I just
I think you're right, Bammy. Yeah, thank you. That awareness of what is there and when is it, I think we can definitely help with. As far as I'm aware, from David and Deborah and Joanna, we are doing the awards again from the IBMS next year. Timescale is likely to be similar. So the dinner was the end of June. Vicky, can you remember? I was saying to Bammy earlier, I can't remember when they opened and when they closed because I wasn't involved in the judging. But I think there was a good couple of months. So Deborah's giving a thumbs up, right? Deborah said we're doing it again. Can you remember the time scale? I seem to think it was a good couple of months from when they opened to when they closed.
Yeah, there was quite a while to put the things in, and I think the deadline, I think you got 2 or 3 months, and then the deadline was extended a little bit, I presume, because it's the first one and people perhaps needed a bit of encouragement. But yeah, you got plenty of time. So if you saw when they were coming up, and reminders were sent out, and I know it's a difficult thing to keep up with sometimes. I'm probably one of the few people around here that has the IBMS website up on my computer most of the time. But like Bammy said, just putting something in your calendar, even if it's several months in advance, to remind you, look this up today, is quite a useful thing to do. But there was plenty of time to get the nominations together, I think. Yeah, I remember doing it over several weeks.
Yeah, thank you. Deborah, did you want to come in? I know you've just put your camera on. Do you want to come in there, or can I? I'll just say.
Yeah,
I'm
you go. Wiggling on the car Sue, and my signal might not be brilliant, but yeah, we launched just before Christmas, and then ran it across Christmas and into the new year. It was tight this year, the time scales, and we would hope that next time round we have a little bit more time for people. But I think the other thing to be really clear about, some of the main awards, like the Advancing Healthcare Awards across the 4 nations and the UK event, you can use your nomination more than once. A well-written nomination can be recycled into other categories. Think of it a bit like the CPD submissions. One really good piece of evidence can be used multiple times, and it's much the same as that. But yeah, I was so proud to be able to finally get IBMS awards off the ground, and brilliant to see everybody's fabulous work. So
yeah. And it was such a nice day. And anybody who got to go, it was such a positive event. It was really nice to be in a room where people were celebrating each other. It was just such a nice thing to be part of. So, and Deborah's also put a comment in the chat. It's not about the big things. It's not about necessarily the awards, is it? It's about that local recognition as well. So I've been having a think, now that we've got one file and we've got a better handle on who the candidates are for the Reg portfolio and where they're from, is there something we could do to say, oh, well done, we've seen you've got this many people go through, or the candidates giving feedback on their training experience in your lab came out really well done you. Is there something we could do at our end that's a more regular acknowledgement of all that work that's going in? And I think the answer to that is yes, we just need to find the mechanism to do that. So I'm really keen to do that kind of thing. And another thing that Catherine Hubbard that I talked about earlier, she puts meetings in her own diary with herself to give her time to do stuff. So where you're thinking about the awards, if you can put a meeting and block your diary, even if it's only an hour, at time slots. So once you know when the awards are going to be, or whatever that might want to be, you can put that time in your diary so you've protected it. Because my diary is one email away from being a sentient being. So I have to put in time where if I need to read something or do something or answer somebody's emails or whatever, I've got to block the time. So I know it's really hard when you're in the lab and out the lab, but if you could at least block a little bit of time to have a think about it, or when you can get together with your colleagues to go, right, we're going to have a meeting today to kick it off. What is it that we want to talk about? How are we going to do that? And then we'll have another one in a month's time and schedule that time. It's easier to keep it on track, I think. Vicky, would you say the same? Because you said some of yours were a lot of people applying together. So some of that kind of preemptive organisation.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I definitely do the same. If I've got something that needs to get done, I will make a meeting with myself in my diary so that I know that I've got that time, and that's useful. I think, yeah, either having someone who's able to pull it all together, which is what I did this time, but like you said, sharing out. So the application forms for the IBMS ones in particular, there were different sections to fill in. You weren't just sort of left write a thing, which can be quite overwhelming. There were sections that said, demonstrate this, demonstrate that, discuss what you've done, which was really helpful. So you could even divide that out between people, and it breaks it down so it's not quite such a big task. And I think, just to pick up on what Tony said as well, that the internal recognition is as important as the external recognition, because we are probably, like many people, you're in a massive organization, you're a back office function, as it were, usually a basement function, I think we'll find most of us are, and just getting on the shortlist, I've never seen labs talked about so much across our organization. Suddenly people were interested. I did an interview with our company magazine, which I didn't even know we had. So like it has just created a bit of a buzz, like, who are labs, what do they do? And it's then given us a little bit of a platform now when we now go and talk to the comms team or other areas. And the first thing people said for a few months was, oh, well done on your award, kind of thing. And you kind of think, oh, they've noticed. And now we can say, well, we're also doing this, and we're also, this is something that we work on. So even if it's just internal, it's really well worth it, because it's something that people notice. And that's not to suggest that people are intentionally not noticing you the rest of the time, but you need something to kind of grab their attention and bring it labs way a little bit, I think.
Thank you, Vicky. Tony?
Yeah, just a wrap up really from me. Yeah, absolutely. We feel as if some of the internal awards, because we do have those at UHP, the very sort of clinical driven, patient facing. So it's about, trying to move into that space and actually, draw the recognition and draw the awareness about what you're doing. The other thing that's crossing my mind and that, needs some consideration is our blood sciences department. We've got about 130 whole-time equivalent members of staff. 300 across the whole of pathology, all engaging in different elements of biomedical science, and even support workers as well as the biomedical scientists, any recognition across the board. So yeah, a little bit of thought, I guess, needs to go towards some sort of funneling. You can't be putting applications in for 20, 30, 40 different elements of your pathology service, but yeah, you need to be fair and have it open to all.
Yeah, and that's hard, isn't it, when there are a lot of you? But you would find it easy to do that scale and scope thing and say, we did something and it's affected 300 people. So
Yeah.
You've got advantages and disadvantages with a larger group, haven't you? So yeah, I think it's about being strategic as well, not applying for everything, and not spreading yourselves too thin, but thinking, okay, so what's the best fit for this group of people and what's the best fit for that? So I think looking at the categories that we've had, it was the first time we did the IBMS Awards. So looking at the categories that we had, are there some that we could maybe tease apart, because there were lots of applications for some and not quite so many for others. So we might have a little bit of a reorganisation, but I'll certainly bear in mind what you said about support workers. And the whole laboratory, not just the registered staff. I think it's important to recognise everyone's contributions, isn't it? So yeah, we can certainly feed that into the discussions for next time. But just knowing what there is and having time to plan is half the battle, isn't it? So hopefully we've done a little bit of awareness raising of that, and maybe some strategies to have a go. So are you going to apply next year, Tony? No pressure. Possibly.
Watch this space. Watch this space.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm just keeping an eye on the clock. We are just 1 minute over 1 o'clock, so I know people will need to go. Everyone's very busy. So if I wrap up, thank you so much, Vicky and Bami, for coming along today and for your contributions. They've been really helpful and really insightful and positive as always. Thank you everyone who's joined us online, and I really hope that you did find it helpful and useful, and you can take some of those tips away and you can use them as you go forward. So thank you again for joining us. We'll wrap up there, and hope to see you again at the next one in September.
Yep.
Bye everyone.
Take care. Thank you all.